You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the big show. As always, for 16 years, 2,400 episodes, we bring you the Chris Voss Show because, we didn't have anything better to do. We're sitting around just going, we should talk to people, and inspire them, tell them stories, And we were like, yeah, that's a good idea, man. Well, how should we do that, And they went, maybe you should start a podcast. And we're like, yeah, but no one's ever heard of podcasting. This is like 17 years ago. At the end of this month, we start our 17th year, August of 2025. I should make that indicative. We're just sitting around and people are like, well, no one's ever heard of a podcast before. There's just a couple idiots running around doing that. So we were just like, if we do this podcast now, we probably end up being one of the oldest surviving podcasts ever. And here we are. And my back hurts because 17 years and 2,400 episodes, people. What more do you want from me? Another 17 years and 2,400 episodes coming up. Anyway, we have an amazing young man we're going to be talking to today who's going to give you insights on leadership, how to improve the quality of your life and your relationships, because, I've seen some of our relationships out there, folks. We need all the help we can get. But in the meantime, we must cajole you, shame you, guilt you, trip you, get you to put 5 people in your downline because we're a pseudo MLM. No, we're not. Go to goodreads.com / Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com / Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity and all those crazy places on the internet. He's the author of the latest book to come out June 13th, 2025. William Davis joins us on the show. The book is entitled Building Genuine Relationships, The Leader's Guide to Connecting, part of the Leadership Blueprint series, Volume 2. In that series, as it were, folks. We'll talk about Volume 2 and Volume 1. We'll get all the volumes in here, darn it, and all that good stuff. So today we're going to be talking with William, and as soon as I find his website here, we're going to get his bio. There it is. William Davis, a man who spent 38 years not just leading teams, but lifting them up. He had a career that spans the heights of corporate America. He's become a trusted voice in leadership, blending decades of experience with genuine passion for guiding others. He's the kind of leader who doesn't just talk about success, he builds it. One relationship, one project, and one person at a time. Welcome to the show, William. How are you?
Good, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
There you go. And thanks for coming. Give us your .coms. Where do you want people to find you on the interwebs out there?
WilliamCDavis.net is really the greatest point of contact, and I've got all of my contact information there via links.
There you go. So give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside your new book?
Well, I retired in May of this year after, like you said, 38 years in corporate America because of the frustration I was having with what I saw as far as leadership goes in corporate America. And so what I wanted to do with the second book was really talk about building relationships. How do you do it? Because it's so critical. To me, and this has been my experience throughout my career, it's the key point of whether you have a great leadership experience or you have a poor leadership experience is being able to build those one-on-one relationships. And so we talk about that in the book, and I share a lot of stories of situations I had over the course of my career.
Oh, that is awesome. Now, you've written 2 books now?
Yes, sir, I did. People are going to find out how much I don't know. The first book talks a lot about the difference between leadership, management, and being a boss, because those are 2 totally separate dynamics, if you will, but we use the terms interchangeably. And unfortunately, there's a number of people who call themselves bosses that just don't make it as a leader at all.
Yeah, I really hate that term, boss.
Yeah, I do too.
I find it kind of disgusting. I may have used it from time to time over the years, every now and then. But I think the more, we've kind of turned this corner, and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm asking for your feedback. I'm not telling you what to think or what the audience thinks. I'm just throwing this out here. I'm softballing you, and I'm segueing too many times too, doing it because it was kind of funny. Anyway,
Right.
it seems like we moved from this blueprint of leadership being the do or get fired, do what I say or get fired. Oh, you want to feel rewarded for your job. That's what the paycheck comes at the end of the week. I actually had a CEO say that to me one time. He goes, this person came to me. This is like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and I'm old. And he said, I don't know why these new employees, they always want to get thanked for their job, and they're trying to. They ask me, when do we feel appreciated? And he's like, you get a paycheck at the end of every 2 weeks. That's the
Mhm.
thank you. I don't have to say it. And I was like, well, I don't know. Times are changing. And it seems like we've kind of changed from that carrot and stick kind of, try and get the mule to move under threat, fear, or, do you want pizza day? Well, be better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got that sort of mentality of be a good employee or else. And we've kind of moved to this sort of thing where people want more of a relationship. They want better leadership. They want to have feel like they're more part of something than not. You tell me if I'm wrong or not.
No, you are absolutely correct, and actually, that's one of the reasons I decided to retire and start this was back in 2023, the World Economic Forum came out and said that we have a world leadership crisis.
Mhm.
So and that was not just in a corporate sense; it was in homes and associations, nonprofits, and so forth. And then in November of the same year, US News and World Report Harris poll came out and showed 86% of the respondents felt like we had a leadership crisis in America.
Mhm.
78% said we had leadership crisis in corporate America. And it's because we're missing the mark. It's to your point exactly. People are looking for more. If you
Mhm.
think about human beings, we naturally want to have a relationship. We want to be important. We want to feel like we're accomplishing something, and that reiteration of or validation, if you will, that's got to come from family, friends, and the workplace bosses.
There you go. People don't quit jobs, they leave bad
That's
bosses.
exactly right. Yep.
There's research that suggests that a significant portion of employees, ranging from 57 to 70%, would consider leaving or actually leave their jobs because of a bad manager or supervisor.
Yeah.
And it's a major factor in employee takeover. This is
Yeah.
according to Google. I should give them a plug. So, we see that a lot. We hear that a lot in going on. And, you invest so much to get good employees.
Right.
And, or hopefully you do, because if you're not investing very well in it, you're just getting whoever comes in to fog a mirror. You're going to have a lot of issues. But, and so leadership is so important. So in your book, now, how do you define leadership? Is it mostly focused on CEOs and people that have sort of manager positions,
No.
or is it kind of the everyday person? Like a parent is a leader.
Yeah, I will say that it's everybody. Everybody has the potential to be a leader, and some of the greatest leaders I've ever worked with are folks that never had titles.
Yeah,
It is just the way that they were able to create the relationship with people, make people feel like they were trusted and that they were important, and they naturally gravitate to that kind of an attitude.
yeah. Isn't that interesting? It's not about the title.
Yeah,
I remember I've said this numerous times in the show, and I think I just found the picture the other day in the storage unit. But I used to keep a picture sitting on my desk. It was a little framed. It was one of the motivational posters, and it basically said, "You have to earn your title every day. Your
yeah,
title isn't a given. Just
yeah,
because you get the title of manager, boss, CEO, whatever the case may be, um, that doesn't mean that you've achieved it. You need to earn that position every day with your people. And yeah, a lot of people have changed. I mean, gen millennials kind of wanted more of their work environment. They wanted to feel more connected. They want to feel like they were, maybe contributing to environmental or worldwide concerns, as opposed to just trying to make a widget and sell it.
yeah,
I think Gen Z is kind of deeper into that, where they want stuff to have more meaning to them. It seems a lot like boomers could just just they could do the work, and they just kind of disconnected. They're like, I don't know, I just do the work. I show up every day, and I don't really think about it much. And that was fine for them. But it seems like there seems to be more of a demand for that leadership, and I think that's really what's being called for. Gen Alpha, I'm sure, is going to put their imprint, their fingerprint on uh, business, how it runs, and management. So we'll see how that comes out. But the boss term, I really hate that. I see a lot of that on social media now. I'm a boss, and it's such, to me, it really has grown a negative connotation term where when someone says they're the boss, it's almost like it almost sounds like a declaration as opposed to earned. I don't know. Is there a reason that bothers me?
No, you're exactly right. It's usually because of the attitude that goes along with it, the arrogance of you do what I say, and don't question me,
or else.
Or else. That's exactly right. One of the things you mentioned, the changing in Gen Z back to boomers. When I was growing up, I grew up on a farm. And, as I learned things, it was because Dad, sat there and worked with me, showed me, and then had me do it. But I think, part of what we're seeing today is a negative from the technology boom that we've had, because if you think about it, going back 25 years ago, all of a sudden cell phones came into existence. All of a sudden we started creating abilities for people to communicate, but without having that interpersonal relationship, because they could do it via text, they could do it email, whatever. And, as we have gotten more advanced from a technology perspective, and I loved what you said a minute ago about parents being leaders. You think about what we see now when you go to a restaurant, and you look at a family that's sitting at a table. What's usually the predominant device in everybody's face? It's an iPhone, right? Or it's a tablet or something. And so that connection that you and I grew up with, is not as dominant a feature as it used to be. And I think that is one of the things that is causing some of the dissatisfaction. Is, again, I go back to the fact that humans desire that relationship. And it's not a relationship that's found over a technology answer. It's a relationship found by being able to see somebody face to face, touch them, go do something, laugh, whatever. And I think we're missing that. And the pandemic did not help that, because, again, you have a generation of kids, or starting of a generation, or ending of a generation of kids who, when they were in that formative stage of really getting into human relationships, dating, going out with buddies because they could drive and all that, pandemic happened. And so what happened? They had to be confined to home. And so we're just now starting to come back out of that, and I think there's a little bit of a learning curve that we're having to go through.
There you go. Yeah, and it's kind of adjusting too. A lot of leaders are, I talk to a lot of leaders. This is something that's interesting too. And I don't know if you've encountered this in your travels, but it's interesting to me when I talk to leaders. I'll be like, "What is your leadership style?" And they're like, "I don't know." And I'm like a lot of them just never given any planned thought to it. They just, I don't know, they're just operating on a toolbox of kind of what got them there. And I mean, there's a lot of probably good stuff in that toolbox, but thinking about how they appear, how they show up as a leader, how they're perceived. That's one thing that is always a challenge in leadership, how you're perceived. I've had employees put me on a pedestal. I've had employees hear bad things about me or true things about me, and then go like, that guy, I've heard bad things about him. And you're probably right. I made mistakes, and I don't always show up perfect. And I'm still trying to become a good leader after 57 years. So it's a journey, but yeah, it's interesting to me how many of them don't have a conscious thought about that. If you want to hit on that.
Oh yeah, and again, if leadership, this is what I've always told people: is leadership is the job. If you want to be a good leader, if you want to be an effective leader, it's the job. And I know I was frustrated a number of times through my career when people would come up and say, "Well, what's your job?" Well, my job is to lead the team. Well, but what is your job? I'm like, take me out of the equation and see how the functioning of the team changes, how the dynamic of the team changes. I think we sometimes poo-poo the fact that leadership is actually a position, and it is a always constantly changing of how we have to lead because of generational changes, environmental changes, other things that come up. And so, to your point, it's something that you have to think about, you have to adapt, and you have to continue to learn. And once you decide that, hey, this is the way that I'm going to lead, I'm never going to change, that will be successful, maybe a very small amount of your career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting to me that if you pay me millions of dollars to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company,
Yeah.
I would probably have some active thought of how do I show up as a leader.
Yep.
Of course, acquisitions. A lot of times when you're stepping into either acquisitions or you're stepping into new leadership, if there's been a lot of negative leadership, and they're like, hey, you're coming in to turn things around a little bit. We had some issues with the last guy, and or maybe morale's down because of economy or whatever. Many times when you're stepping in these situations, you're having to kind of put your fingerprint, your blueprint down as what your leadership style is. And sometimes that can be wildly different, depending upon the prior leader. Sometimes you got to be careful you don't shock the system.
Yeah.
And many times, that initial drop of your leadership and how you initially show up, that sets the tone for everything else. And if you fumble it, you're kind of screwed.
It's hard to recover. It really
Yeah.
is. You're right. Yeah.
You look at like the CEO who took over for Disney after Michael Eisner retired, and I believe Michael handpicked him,
Yes.
and it just didn't flow for a variety of reasons. But and Michael Eisner finally, said, "This guy sucks, so I'm coming
Enough.
back."
Yeah.
so leadership's important in how you show up and how you come across. So it's interesting to me how many people don't really have how many leaders I talk to don't have a conscious thought of like, what is my leadership style? How do I show up? How do people perceive me? So there you go.
Yeah.
In the book, what are some other aspects or tease outs we can talk about in the Building Genuine Relationships book? And why are the relationships important? Why do I have to have relationships with my silly employees?
Well, some of the other items that I hit is first of all, you have to want to be a leader, is my belief. If I don't want to be a leader, then I'm not going to be successful at it. And when we talk about being a leader, it's again, getting our people to do the greatest things. Don't look at me to be the one to do the greatest things. I'm looking at you to be able to grow. I'm looking to you to be able to be successful. And so you have to want that. And what I found, Chris, many times is leaders, instead of looking at their people as the greatest success story of their career, they look at their people as competition. I can't tell you how many times in my career somebody that worked for me passed me up. And man, to me, that's great because,
Wow.
hey, they wanted it, they went after it, they were successful. And to me, what it told me was I allowed them the opportunity to grow. Right. And that's what it's about is letting them be successful, they knowing that you have their back. And we go through such a metamorphosis of people throughout our careers that you've got to be able to quickly adapt to what your point was earlier of differing styles that are going to work with people. I have always said that you build relationships one person at a time because not one style is going to work with everybody. And I often, equate it to a marriage because, when you get married, you have, a couple that comes together who has X number of years and of a background and other experiences and relationships and so forth. And now you're trying to blend those two together to where they're cohesive and they work together, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully in a marriage, you've got 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years in order to do that. Well, in a work relationship, we don't have that. You
Mhm.
usually have more than two people, 5, 10, 15, 20 plus, and you've got to very quickly get that group to meld together and be able to function properly. So what I've always told people is, build your relationship with your people one at a time, and then you go to the group, and you know each individual now, and now you understand, how do I get them to work together, and you set some fundamental rules. One, and I've always told this to my folks, is you never throw anybody under the bus. you
Mm.
know that is a non starter with me.
Yeah.
We win together, we lose together. If
Mhm.
somebody makes a mistake, you know what, everything is fixable. We go
Mhm.
back, we correct it, and we move forward, and we learn from it.
Mhm.
And one of the greatest, joys I ever had out of my career was when we were doing a lot of mergers and acquisition with the bank I worked for. I had a team, and we were on the road together 75% of the time.
Wow.
And man, those guys just had fun. The work, was awful sometimes, and the situations and places we went were awful. But every night when I made us all go to dinner together, and we had fun, we talked, we got to know each other, we shared stories, and when we came back in the next day, everybody felt like they were all on equal footing, and they had the ability to talk to each other on a personal basis, not just a work basis.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and you mentioned earlier about not making your employees your competition.
Yeah,
You have to seed the future leadership of the
yeah,
company. That's part of your job as leader,
right,
is to
right.
seed those future leaders, SEED,
Yeah,
not CEED. You need to succeed those future leaders.
yeah,
No, seed those future leaders so that they grow. You need to help them develop. You need to train your replacements. That's
yeah,
basically it. And that's and whether or not those people come up through the promotion of the corporation or whatever, even just the value added of training and getting people to think about leadership and stuff can make them better employees too, because then they think about how they're showing up, then they think about how they're interacting. Relationships are so important. I've told this joke a number of times on the show. Back in the 90s, I used to call it touching the hearts and minds of my employees, and then HR says the touching word is kind of a problem. But I would go around the office on a weekly basis. It's a joke we always pull, but I would go out and I would try and they said I can't do the touching anymore, but I would try and connect with the hearts and minds of my employees, and I would check in with them. And part of that relationship and building, and what you talk about in your book, is not just being like showing up going, where's your TPS reports, from the
yeah,
movie Office Space,
yeah,
but hey, how's things going at home? How's the
yeah,
wife and kids? How's life treating you? Where are you at in your headspace? Especially if they're salesmen, if they get
right.
screwed up in their headspace, they get something that is irritating that it doesn't have to do with sales, their sales can tank,
Yeah,
you know. Um, and uh and that's why there's cocaine. No, I'm just kidding. Those great salespeople sometimes get into things. But so touch the hearts and there I go again. It's an old habit from the 90s, folks. I never touched them. Well, I may have patted them on the back, but I can't do that anymore, evidently. But I just checking in with them, letting them know that
yeah,
you give a shit, that you care. And you can't do it like, how's the wife and kids? Oh, that's great. Hey, can I get your TPS reports?
right.
They have to realize you give a shit about their
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
And that's why people follow leaders, is they
yeah,
want to follow someone who gives a shit about their future, who
yeah,
cares, who's vested in them just as much as they are vested in you as a leader, your company, or whatever it is you're doing. And if you don't have that, people sense that and they're like, I want to go someplace that gives a shit about me for a change.
yeah, exactly.
Sounds like
And
my first 10 marriages, or fourth one.
well, yeah, that could be an issue. And I think, I never really had a whole lot of success creating the type of relationship I felt like you needed in the office. Nobody wants to come into my office or go into a boardroom and say, "Hey, let's sit down and get to know each other," because again, the dynamic is still such that they see you at an elevated level as opposed to them, and they're not willing and confident enough to open up.
Mm,
And so I always tried to build the relationships based on a place that they were comfortable in. And I'll just give you an example. I had a young man who came to work for me, great kid, very smart, very funny, very outgoing, but he was always very nervous around me and others. And so finally, I just said, "Hey, what do you want to do, or what do you like to do outside of the office?" He goes, "Well, I love to golf."
Hmm.
Well, so 30 years ago, I still golf. So I said, "Okay, you know what? We're going to take an afternoon. We're just going to leave the office. We're going to go golf."
Hmm.
And once he got over the shock that we could actually do that, um, we went to the golf course and I had him drive. So he was very nervous about wrecking the cart. I'm like, "We're only going 2 or 3 miles an hour. I don't think there's an issue." But we got to like the fourth hole and I teed off, and oh my word, it was the worst shot I think I've ever seen. And I'm not sure they've still found the ball to this day. And he looked at me like,
It's
okay,
space.
how is he going to react? Because some people take themselves so seriously that, they
Yeah.
slam the club or curse or whatever. And I just started making fun of it, and I said, I want you to know I did that just to take it easy on you. And we started laughing about it. And so the whole dynamic of our relationship started to change because he saw that, hey, he wants to get to know me. He wants to have fun. He wants to, be a part of more than just work. And by the time we were done golfing that day, you would have thought we'd known each other, 20, 30 years.
Wow.
And so, to me, that is always the way that you try to approach your people is, to your point, help them understand I do care, right?
Mhm.
Because everybody has good days, everybody has bad days. I, as a leader, have to be able to manage them, lead them through those bad days, even if it's personal, in
Mhm.
order to not adversely affect their career, not adversely affect the work that we're doing, and try to help them come out on the other side, in a good place, right?
Mhm.
And there's obviously limits of what you can do,
Mhm.
particularly these days. But just caring to the point. Hey, you know what? Anything you need, just let me know. If you need to work at home, so you're not within the distractions of the office, just let me know. You can work at home. Hey, if you need to take a few days off, just let me know. We'll cover for you, right? And,
Mhm.
and again, help them know that they are as high a priority in your mind personally as they are professionally.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Tell us about some of the offers you do on your website, at williamcdavis.net. Some of the things you do, speaking, workshops, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I do keynote speaking. There's a couple of speeches that I have found really resonate with groups, particularly when we talk about this relationship building, because again, to your point, it's kind of a lost art, if you will, and so people want to understand, hey, how can I connect with my people better? So I talk about that. I also talk about, one of the challenges that I've seen in leadership is a lack of maturity.
Mm.
And when we're talking leadership, we're talking about emotional intelligence, right? And are you able to put others first? Are you able to remain calm under pressure? Are you able to emphasize your team over self? Are you able to inspire, motivate others? So we talk about that because that is a challenge. And people ask me, is that something that can be learned? And I hesitate in saying that it
Mhm.
can be, because I think in a large degree, you either are that way or you
Mhm.
aren't.
Mhm.
And to the points that you've made before, people know if you're faking.
Mhm.
And if you're faking, you lose them quickly, and you won't regain them. Sometimes when you just slip up when you start, people are willing to give you the other another opportunity to correct course and move forward. But if they think that you're false, a fake person, then they're very hesitant to give you another chance.
Yeah. They want leaders that walk their talk and
Yeah.
talk their walk.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
I've seen people, and sometimes they kind of watch for you to whether they're trying to build trust. They're watching to see if you are going to, say what you say and do what you do.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things that's really important for them to take and have. And so you've got, let's see, you've got the workshops that you do. People can reach out to you, schedule a time with you there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Again, don't really worry about the size of the group that wants to talk or work through things. When we do it virtually, or I can do it in person. It's amazing how much time I have these days since I retired. So I look for the opportunities to engage with other people.
Definitely. Engagement is great. Engagement
Yes.
is good.
Yes.
So there you go. Final thoughts as we go out. Tell people where they can buy your wares and all that stuff, and .coms.
The books are on Amazon, and the first book is both in Kindle and in paperback. Second book is in Kindle, paperback, and hardback. I'm really proud of the second book. Not that I'm not of the first, but I'm really proud of the second book because, again, this was the philosophy that I used for 38 years, and what I'm so proud of is the fact that I had throughout my career over 90% retention rate in my folks. And I still have a lot of contact with them even today, even though we may not have worked together for a long time. So it's a tried and true principle, but it takes work, and it takes a desire to do it. And then my website is williamcdavis.net, and again, there's various articles that I've written, books, talks about the different keynotes that I give, and you can also contact me through that.
There you go. Well, thank you very much, William, for coming to the show.
Chris.
We really appreciate it. Wonderful, insightful stuff on how people need to be better leaders. Of course, they can pick up your books to find out more. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. And thanks, Ron, for tuning in. Order up his books wherever fine books are sold. There's a leadership blueprint series. I forgot to ask you, you have more probably coming out from your 38 years of experience?
I do. I'm going to start writing my third book here within the next month or so, and we're going to talk specifically about build off of the relationship, the communication, how you communicate with others.
There you go. That should be interesting because, there's so many different aspects to leadership and so many different things. In every leadership book I read, I learn something new or a new paradigm or perspective at looking at things. So, it's a constant learning curve to be a good leader.
It is.
Thank you for coming to the show, William. Thanks, Ron, for tuning in. Order the book wherever fine books are sold. Building Genuine Relationships, let me recut that. Building Genuine Relationships, the Leader's Guide to Connecting, from the Leadership Blueprint Series, Volume number 2, out June 13th, 2025. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time.